for your children to be fed. So you're not crying because they're crying and they can't go to bed. You cannot pray for your medical bills to disappear. You cannot pray for the mold to stop poisoning your children in the classrooms. The other thing that frustrates me is people who have experienced poverty, who have gotten the straps for their bootstraps, who sit and talk about how we shouldn't do anything for the next person. See, as someone who knows severe poverty, I lived in a refugee camp, on the floor, no water, nothing. And I hear somebody say here in the United States.
In this emotional moment, Ilhan Omar starts by talking about the struggles of poverty, saying, "You can't pray away hunger or medical bills." Her words hit hard for many who face real hardship. But this emotional appeal also raises eyebrows because while Omar paints herself as a victim of the system, critics argue that she's used that sympathy to excuse her controversial behavior in Congress. Her background story connects with people, yes, but it's her words and actions as a lawmaker that have caused division and outrage across America. This video dives into the big story behind Congressman Chip Roy's reaction to Omar's removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. For years, Omar has made statements that many saw as damaging to America's global reputation. Republicans, led by voices like Roy, are saying enough is enough. They believe her removal wasn't about race or religion. It was about restoring accountability and protecting America's credibility on the world stage. This is where the clash between political power and public trust truly begins.
Gentleman from Texas recognized.
Appreciate the chairman. I do associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from Kentucky, but also the gentleman from South Carolina, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the gentlelady, all the remarks that we've been talking about over here. And I appreciate the spirit of the remarks from the gentleman from Colorado. Would note that we're here for a very obvious reason. The door was opened, and now we're dealing with that. And the door shouldn't have been open. I'm reminded when I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2005, and Miguel Estrada was being filibustered by the Democrat majority at the time. And we know why. We know this because a memo that said very specifically that he was being filibustered because he was an Hispanic conservative was found, but then shoved aside. We couldn't talk about it because it was found on a server, and they said, we shouldn't get it. There's a whole lot of backstory on that. But there was a lot of drama around that. There were 7 judges being held up: Priscilla Owen, Janice Rogers Brown, because she's black. That was all happening. We just sweep that aside. And you fast forward, and Bill Frist was being pressured to deploy the nuclear option. I remember being part of all those conversations, the Senate lawyer and the Judiciary Committee. Bill Frist decided not to deploy the nuclear option. In 2013, Harry Reid did deploy the nuclear option. 2017.
When Chip Roy took the floor, his tone was clear. This was about fairness and consistency. He reminded everyone that Democrats opened the door to these committee removals when they stripped Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar their roles last term. Now, Republicans are simply responding in kind. Roy didn't want this path, but he said it himself. We're not going to unilaterally disarm. In politics, when one side changes the rules, the other side eventually responds. And that's exactly what's happening here. Roy compared the situation to an old-school baseball fight between Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura, where one player took a hit and finally fought back. It's his way of saying that Republicans are no longer sitting on the sidelines while Democrats take shots. This analogy perfectly captures the mood inside Congress right now. It's about standing your ground, even if it means getting a little bruise in the process. Roy's words sent a strong signal. The era of one-sided politics is over.
And certain things changed at the United States Supreme Court. So now we live in that world. It is what it is. Now here we sit. The door was opened. I just went back and reread my speech on the floor because the gentleman, I hadn't done that yet. I went back and reread my speech on the floor. Not stand by every word of that speech. And in it, I referenced the fact that I had just a few months prior had been in agreement with some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with respect to January 6th, which there's disagreements on our side of the aisle on some of that with respect to the votes at the time. And that I'd taken very strong disagreement and sought apology from our colleague on our side of the aisle about some of the remarks that were said, but felt that this was not the right path to go down. I stand by that. So here we sit. I could associate myself and do with all the remarks the gentleman from South Carolina. I have very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justifications to raise issues with respect to service on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I would not go down this road. But I'm also reminded, in August of 1993, Juan Gonzalez was a batter for the Texas Rangers and was plunked by Alex Fernandez from the White Sox. And just a little bit later, Robin Ventura.
Roy made it clear that he disagrees with many of Omar's statements, especially her comment about 9/11 being when some people did something. For millions of Americans, that line was deeply offensive. It wasn't just poor phrasing. It symbolized a lack of respect for a national tragedy. That single remark changed how many saw her, and it's one of the reasons Republicans felt she shouldn't represent America in foreign affairs. Accountability, Roy argued, is not punishment, it's protection. The channel's commentary remind viewers that this is bigger than politics. It's about standing up to the establishment. For years, conservative voices have been silenced or mocked for speaking truth. Now, platforms like this one are fighting back by exposing hypocrisy and defending patriotic values. Omar's removal is just one example of that fight. It's not about silencing anyone. It's about making sure those who represent America do so with integrity and respect for the nation's value.
For the White Sox, and Nolan Ryan was on the mound. And Robin knew what was about to happen. Nolan plunked him. And then Robin Ventura charged the mound, and then Nolan Ryan beat the crud out of him on the mound. That's what happened. We all know that's what happened. Old school baseball. Nolan Ryan defined old school baseball. This is raw politics. That's what this is. When the doors opened, then there's a question, and you have to decide what you're going to do. We're not going to unilaterally disarm. Just not going to do it. I'm tired of that. It just is what it is. Guys took a shot at someone on our team, about statements I disagreed with and took very much to task. But I've got strong disagreements with Representative Omar. I would prefer, if it were just starting from scratch, I would not choose this path. I'd just say whatever stuff you all want to say. We'll say whatever stuff we want to say. Our manager will pick our team. Let's go battle it out in committee. That's what I would say. I would say that's the right place to be. But at this point in time, it is my considered judgment that, like Nolan Ryan, we've got to respond. And I'm just going to be blunt and honest about it. That's just my belief. I think it's important. And I hope we'll get through this. We'll kind of hip check each other. Maybe we can sit down.